Boker Tov from Har Sinai. We're broadcasting to you from Mount Sinai. You could see Har Sinai right there, and it's right there. We're studying, and we're straight from Har Sinai. The Torah is from Zion. I think that this is the first Daf Yomi shir ever from Har Sinai, because back in time of Moshe, they didn't do Daf Yomi. They did the whole. Last night we did it too, but this is the first Daf Yomi shir. We got this market, the Daf Yomi from Sinai market, and
you got all of it.
The Har Sinai. They got everything. But they didn't. The Gemara tells us a story that Moshe Rabbeinu was in the middle of Har Sinai, and he went to a Gemara shir of Rabbi Akiva, and he sat in the back row, and he got upset because he didn't know what was going on, and he was crying. He didn't understand the shir, and then he said, "How do you know this?" And they said, "It's a law from Moshe at Sinai." So even Moshe Rabbeinu went to study Gemara at Har Sinai. Even Moshe Rabbeinu went to study Gemara at Har Sinai. So it's such a geschmack to be able to study Gemara with you at Har Sinai. Okay, so it says we're a third of the way down on Lamed Hey Amud Aleph. The people that went up with Kalev, they said, we can't conquer the land. Amar Rabbi Chanina bar Papa Davar Gadol Dibru Meraglim Bozo Shah. And at that moment, the Meraglim spoke something terrible. Because what did they say? They said, Ki chazaku mimenu. They said they're stronger than us. Al tikri mimenu ela mimenu. Don't say that they were stronger than us. They said they're stronger than him, with the capital H, than God. Kaviyachol, it's as though they were saying, Afilu bala bayis enu yachol lahotzi kelev misham. They were saying, even the landlord, i.e. God, can't get out these 7 nations from the land of Canaan. We can't conquer it. That was the sin of the Meraglim. Eretz Ochelos Yoshvei. He said it's a land that eats in its inhabitants. Darash Rava Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, says God, Ani chashavti tova. I tried to do them a favor. But they misinterpreted and did something bad. Ani chashavti tova. I tried to do them a favor to call Heichot Damatu Meis Chashiva Didaya. Wherever they arrived, the distinguished one amongst them died. Meaning, whenever the Meraglim came to a place, the head of that community died. God was doing them a favor. Why? Because God wanted them to be dealing with their burial of their community leader and not dealing with the Meraglim. So basically, that's why they thought, everybody's dying in the land of Canaan, because God was killing the people. But instead they said the land is too dangerous. Alternatively, Eov nach nafshe. Gemara says, when did Eov live? So this Gemara paskins like the fact that Eov lived in the time of Moshe, that Eov nach nafshe, Eov died then. Ichudu kuli alma bes beda. And the whole land of Canaan was dealing with the eulogy for Eov. Heim chashvu l'ra. They said, the Meraglim said, this is a bad community. Eretz Ochelos Yoshvei. Everybody's dying. It's a land that eats in its inhabitants. And then it says, V'nehibe neinu kechagavim. We were in our eyes, we were like locusts. And so too in their eyes, they thought that we were locusts. They said that the people of Canaan thought that we were locusts, like locusts. Amarav Mesharshi, Meraglim Shakrayavi. They were liars, the Meraglim. Bishlam, it makes sense. It makes sense to say we felt like locusts. Fine, that's true. How did they know? How did the Meraglim know that the other people saw us as locusts? How did they know that? Doesn't make any sense. It's not the case, because what happened was they weren't liars. When the people were burying their dead, after you bury your dead, you have what's called a Sudas Havra. You have to have this meal. And they were sitting 2-3 hours. They were sitting under their cedar trees, having Mavri. And so when they saw them having their meal, they went up into the tree. And they say, they saw that the spies were saying, we saw that these people, they who are like locusts. So basically, we saw that the spies were like locusts. And when the Meraglim came back with their bad report, the whole people lifted up their eyes, lifted up their congregation, lifted up their voices, and they cried. That day that they were crying, Erev Tisha B'Av Haya. That day that they came back was the eve of Tisha B'Av. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Im Bachu. So there's a dispute whether it was Erev Tisha B'Av or Tisha B'Av. There's 2 different texts in the Gemara. So the point was they were crying on Tisha B'Av. So God says, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hein Bachu B'Chiyah Shel Chinam. They cried for nothing. I will establish this day will be a day of crying for all future generations. So Tisha B'Av was a day that we're going to be crying for all future generations. I'm going to stop for 1 second. So Rabbi Soloveitchik asked the question, so it says in our Gemara that the Tisha B'Av forever is a day of sadness and crying. So Rabbi Soloveitchik asked the question. The Gemara also asked it. Rabbi Soloveitchik gave a powerful answer. During the time of the Second Temple, were the Jewish people still fasting on Tisha B'Av? When the Second Temple was rebuilt, would they be fasting? So how can you be crying and fasting? We have the temple rebuilt. So when I went to Venezuela around, 12 or 13 years ago, I don't remember exactly, and the country of Venezuela was beginning to implode, the rabbi of Venezuela said to me, told me this for it, and I said, I don't know. He said, Rabbi Soloveitchik said, you're going to fast and fast on Tisha B'Av so that it doesn't happen again. And he saw it as his country was collapsing. So I never forgot that. And so the people said, let's stone them, all the congregation, let's stone them. God's glory appeared in the Ol Moed. They took stones and they threw them up to heaven. The people who spread out this lies died in the plague. The people who spread the lies about the Meraglim died a strange death. Their tongues extended from their mouths and fell up to their bellies. The worms went out of their tongues and it went into their bellies. And from their bellies it entered into their tongues. It sounds pretty horrific. Ascara is this like choking disease. And ascara comes, the Gemara tells us elsewhere, Rashi says, comes for the sin of Lashon Hara, speaking bad about someone. So then you get this disease where you choke to death. So we go back to what we were talking about before, is how the children of Israel crossed the Jordan. So once the last one crossed the Jordan, once the last one went up, the water went back to its place. It says, when the Kohanim went up from the Jordan, then the Kohanim went back to the dry land. And then the water returned to its place. And the Jordan River returned to its regular place with its banks. So Nimta Aaron v'Nosef v'Kohanim mitzad echad. So the Gemara takes a strange reading of it, and almost in order to do a drash, they said so. Mitzad echad v'Yisrael mitzad echad. So the Jewish people had crossed, but now the Aaron and the Kohanim are back still on the same side. They never crossed. How'd they get across? So Nasa Aaron es Nosef v'Avar. The ark lifted up the people who carried it. In this case, it was the Kohanim who were carrying it. And it crossed over, as it says, so the ark lifted up the Kohanim and crossed it over the Jordan. It flew. This is why Uzzah was punished. When was Uzzah? Was in 2 Samuel chapter 6, I think. I don't know. Maybe not 6, maybe 10. No, not 10. Maybe 4 or 5. I don't know. Look it up. 2 Samuel 7 or 8. I don't know. Not 10. Definitely not 10. So what happened? This was why Uzzah was punished, because when they were bringing the ark into Jerusalem, it says, "Vayavo ad goren kidon vayishlach Uzzah es yado achozes Aram." The ark slipped. Uzzah went to grab it, and he 6. Okay, fine. Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu Uzzah. So Uzzah went to grab the ark to stop it from falling. God said, "No son nasa atzmo." No sin. It carries other people. Nasa atzmo kol shekain, for sure it could carry itself. Who are you to stop the arm from falling? It's like a no-win situation. Like, can you imagine if you let it fall? It would be a horrible thing. But what? Wouldn't have fallen, right? But that's like the person, like, God forbid, you see a Torah, like, everybody goes crazy to hold it. I mean, how's he? Okay, but Uzzah, God got upset at Uzzah and he struck him there al shal. I know what shal, I guess, shal, I don't know what technically means. What does it mean? Like maybe like in that spot. But the Gemara takes a drash. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Elazar, Chad Amar al Iskei Shelo. It struck him for his business, for what he did. Al Iskei Shelo, meaning to say that he accidentally touched it. sheshagag, he made this mistake to touch it. And that's what the first approach of the Gemara is. I was thinking about this, that he went to the bathroom in front of the Aron. Here I'm standing. We're in Har Sinai now. It's the only place in the Torah, I think, I could be wrong, but it's the only place that says Admas Kodesh. It's called Holy Land. Even though when the shofar blasted, they were allowed to go on the mountain. But this is the only place that's called Holy Land in the whole Bible. And so you have to act with sanctity here. And he was punished because he went to the bathroom in front of the ark. And he died there with the ark of God. Nevertheless, the Rabbi Yochanan tells us Uzzah is coming to the world to come, as it says, Im Aron Elokim, with the ark of God. Ma Aron Olam Kayim, just like the ark is always going to be standing. Af Uzzah Ba'al Olam Haba. So too, Uzzah is going to come to the world to come. David al Asher Parat Hashem Parat Uzzah. David was very upset that God made a breach and struck Uzzah. Amar Abu Lazar shenishtanu panav kecharara. David's face changed into like a harara. Harara in the Gemara is like a charcoaled cake. If that's the case, wherever it says vayichar hachinami, is that what it means? The Gemara says hasam siv af, hachalok siv af. So no, the difference is it says it's when it says af, it refers to the face, and that's why we say his face changed like a harara. Tarash Rava Mimneman and David. Why was David punished? When do we say that David was punished? So it says Mimneman. Why was David punished? And the Gemara assumes here that David was punished with Uzzah's death. That was actually a punishment of David. Okay, this is a very, very difficult Gemara. David was punished because he called the words of Torah songs. He said the Torah is a song. Torah is not just a song. The Torah is the Torah. You can't just say the Torah is a song. People want to say the Torah is only a song. No, it's not just a song. It's the Torah. As Zmiros Hayulichu Kacha bebeis migurai says, it was a song for me in the house that I lived. Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu, Dvar Torah shekasav b'ahen hitifei necha bo veinenu, that the Torah about which it states this verse, this powerful verse, that that your eyes turn to it, and you're going to call it. I just want to look at that pasuk in a little bit depth. He says, meaning that if a person closes his eyes and he loses concentration from the Torah, immediately the Torah is going to be forgotten. That's the power of the Torah. And you're calling it like a song. It's a terrible thing. So God said to David, I'm going to get you to make a mistake in something that even the little children in school know. Because it says in the pasuk in Bamidbar, in Parshas Naso, that Moshe gave wagons to all the Levites to carry their stuff for the Mishkan, the utensils, but he didn't give anything to the Bnei Kahas because they needed to carry it, because they need to carry the Aron on their shoulder and not in a wagon. And David put the Aron in a wagon. David put it in a wagon. And then it says, since the Gemara is discussing the actions of Uzzah, who when he brought up the ark from Kiryat Yarim, the Gemara is now going to discuss the psukim earlier in the Gemara when the ark came back to the Philistines, as it says, and that the people of Beit Shemesh were struck down because they saw the ark of God. So the Gemara asked the question: they saw it, they were struck down. Rabbi Avol, Rabbi Elazar, Chad Amar. No, what does it mean that they saw it? That this is like piercing us as we're standing at Sinai. Piercing us as we're standing at Sinai. What was their punishment? They said, oh, they saw the ark. They continued to harvest and they bowed down. It didn't change their life. They saw the ark and they kept doing it. They saw something spiritual passing in front of them and they said, oh, that's very nice. Continue life as normal. That's why they were punished. The reason why they were punished is because they spoke bad against the Aron. What did they say? They said to the ark, who got you upset that you got upset and you didn't save yourself? And who's going to appease you from coming? Meaning to say, what happened that you came to hear? And then it says that when it came to this place, the Kiryat Yarim, 75,000 men died. So Rabbi Elazar says, but it breaks up. It says Shivim ish v'chamishim elef ish. It says 70,000, 70 and 50,000. So the Gemara says So the Gemara the Gemara doesn't want to understand that it was 50,070. They don't want to take that literal explanation. So one says Shiva Mishayu. There were really only 70 men who died in Beit Shemesh. Each one of these 70 was worth 50,000. One says 50,000 died. And each one of those 50,000 was worth like the Sanhedrin. Both of them are very beautiful explanations. So the prophet Samuel tells that after Uzzah died, it says in Shmuel and in Divrei Yamim that after Uzzah died, David didn't want to continue to bring the coffin, the Aron into Yerushalayim, and so he brought it to Beit Oved Edom Hagiti, and there it was there for 3 months until he heard that Oved's house was being blessed, and then he brought it into Jerusalem with great joy. And so it says in the prophets, the Shmuel and Divrei Yamim, that when he brought it to Jerusalem, he brought a lot of sacrifices before the Aron. It says, "Vayiki tza'adunu say Aron Hashem shisha tza'adim." When people carrying the Aron went 6 tza'adim, vayizbach shor umari. They brought a shor umari. So they brought an ox, and a mari is a fattened ox. What? Calf? Is it what? Yeah. I'm saying I'm not sure, but the Mesivta says it's a shor mefutam, which is like a fattened ox. Sometimes it means a calf, but it's what? And so it says. So it says, and it says shiva parim, and it says also they brought 7 cows, the shiva elam, which is a little different, 7 cows and 7 rams, as opposed to just a shor umari. So therefore, it's difficult. So the pasuk in Shmuel says they brought a shor mari. The pasuk in Divrei Yamim says they brought 7 cows and 7 rams. How do we deal with this contradiction between the two books? So it says Rav Papa Bar Shmuel, I'll call psio shor mari. For every step they brought a shor and a mari, and I'll call sheish v'sheish psios. And for every 6 steps that they took, shiva parim shiva elam. So for every step they brought a shor mari, and for every well, they're going to say that. And for every 6 steps, they brought it 7 cows and 7 rams. Amalei Rav Chlista im kain mileiseh es kol eretz Yisrael bamos. Well, if you've done that, then all of Israel is basically full of a ton of altars. Every time you take a step, you have to bring a different altar. Rav Chlista, I'll call sheish v'sheish psios shor mari. For every 6 steps, they brought a shor and a mari. I'll call shishos adarim shal sheish psios. And whenever they did 6 times the 6 steps, they brought shiva parim v'shiva elim. So they brought the 7 cows and 7 rams. For every 6 steps, they brought 1 shor mari, and then every 6 times they did the 6 steps, they brought the 7 cows and 7 rams. Ksiv Kidon. It says in Divrei Yamim that it came to the Goren in Kidon, and it says in Shmuel Nachon. So which place is it? Amar Rabbi Yochanan Betchila Kidon. At first, it was in Kidon, which is like a spear that Uzzah died from, like this, from the ark, ubesof nachon. But in the end, it was fixed. At first, the ark was a dangerous weapon. In the end, the ark was fixed. Nimtzeis ataomer shlosha mine avanamayim. Also, the Gemara goes back and says, okay, so there were 3 types of stones in the Jordan. There was one in the Jordan. There was one on the other side of the Jordan, which is actually the side we're on now. Which is actually the side we're on now. And then there was also on when they set one up in Gilgal. So the Gemara is going to say at first it was 3 stones. Echad she'ekim Moshe be'eretz Moab, one which Moshe established in the land of Moab, which is a little bit north of us, where we are now in Midian. And then it, as said, Be'evar Yardim eretz Moab, Hol Moshe. And then it says, Uomer l'chasafti, and it's called the Torah Zos, Vasya Be'er. So that teaches us that Moshe set up in Moab. And then we saw Joshua set up stones in the middle of the Jordan. It says, he established 12 stones in the Jordan. And then we set up 12 more stones in Gilgal. Joshua said, it says in Joshua chapter 4, so now the Gemara, so it said in the Mishnah that when Bnei Yisrael established these stones on Mount Gerizim, Mount Eval, from those stones that they brought from the Jordan, they wrote on those stones the entire Torah in 70 languages, so that all the nations of the world could come and see the Torah. So Tan Rabbanan, Kitza Kat Fu Yisrael Torah. How did the Jewish people write the Torah on the altar? Rabbi Yehuda says, Agabe Avanim Kasfua. They wrote the Torah on stones, as it says, V'chasafta Avanim. It's called Divrei Torah. So can't even imagine writing the Torah on a stone. You know how many letters are on the Torah? 300, something like 304,805 letters in the Torah. How can you write that on a stone? After they wrote it on stones, Sadu son the Sid. They covered it with Sid. Sid is like a plaster that they covered it. And Amal Rabbi Shimon, so if that's the case, if they wrote the Torah and then they covered it, how did everybody learn the Torah? So how are they able to learn the Torah? So Amar Lo, Bina Yisera Nasama Kadosh Baruch Hu, Vishigru no Teran Shalahan, Vikilfu as a Sid V'Siua. So how did the nations of the world learn the Torah if it was covered over with plaster? So Rabbi Yehuda said to Rabbi Shimon, God gave the nations of the world extra intelligence, and they sent their scribes and they peeled off the plaster, the siua, and what happened was they were able to somehow, like actually Professor Kohler was talking about a type of technology that they had in the ancient world, but they were able to like place like a stencil on top of the stones, pull off the writing from it and take it back to where they were and then write it. That's what the Gemara is assuming. Karma, I guess so. I don't know. It's something similar to what Professor Kohler was talking about yesterday. What did you call that? Like where they wrote off? Okay.
Oh, were you talking about when you erase virus and then rewrote
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Make it squeeze with paper mache.
That's what they did. They did something like that. Yeah. They pulled off the image. And because the nations of the world did this, they were punished. Why? They had the Torah and they didn't study it. And Shimon says, no, they wrote the Torah on top of the plaster, as it says, because and as it says, Lamata, it says they wrote it for them below. So this teaches us, if yeah.
Are we assuming that this was the only copy?
No, they wrote it. Oh, I don't know. No, Moshe Rabbeinu had 2 Sifrei Torah. It says as last day. He, in addition to this, we know Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the Torah. So he had 2 Sifrei Torah. And the nations. This is for the nations of the world.
Oh, they were passing through Jordan.
The nations of the world, wherever they want, they can come here and get their copy of the Torah. Also, they had to write it in 70 languages. So it says, so by the way, the Gemara is going to say,
All the nations of the world rejected it.
That's a different Gemara. That's true. But they didn't want to accept all the mitzvahs of the Torah upon them. But here it's teaching them not to worship idolatry. And it tells us that if they would have done tshuva, we learned from here, it says, if the nations of the world would have repented, as Canaanite nations, we would have had to accept that. So that's, and they wouldn't have to kill them. Even though the Torah says specifically to kill the 7 nations, here it says, if the nations of the world would have accepted the Torah, we wouldn't have been allowed to kill them. So this is a tremendous analysis of those psukim, because the psukim seem pretty clear that you have to kill the 7 nations. But here we're saying that if they would have done tshuva, you would have had to accept them. Amar Rabbi Bar Shimon, my time with Rabbi Shimon, who says that who says that after they covered it with plaster, they wrote the Torah. They'll say Vayu Amim Misrafot Sid. That and the intent of this pasuk is to say that the nations will be judged for Sreifa al Iske Sid, because they ignored the Torah. Rabbi Yehuda, who says that, and Rabbi Yehuda will explain that this pasuk means that it means ki sid, that the nations will be punished like sid. Ma sid ein lo takana el sreifa. Just like the way you get rid of this plaster is by burning it. Af osama kutim. So those kutim, as long as they did not convert, ein lam takana el sreifa, they're going to be burned. So the Gemara says, Kaman Azla, like who does it mean? Hadatanya, like it says, Vishavisa Shivyo, that it says that you could take a captive from the Canaanite nations. The Rabbos Kananim Shabbat. This comes to include even the Canaanites outside the land of Israel. If they would repent, we would accept them. Who is that like? That's like Rabbi Shimon, who says that if they were do tshuva, you have to accept them. So we see from here, the Gemara is saying that the Canaanites outside the land of Israel, if they do tshuva, you have to accept them. First of all, I want to stop, and just before I stop the recording, Say, what a geschmack to learn the Torah at Har Sinai with the people around the world. I see people on the Zoom from around the world, and it's amazing. What a geschmack to learn Torah with you from Sinai. It says that when the Torah was given at Sinai, the words were heard all over the world by every Jew everywhere. And when that midrash was given, people say, "Oh, it's impossible. How could you possibly say something at Har Sinai and it was be heard for all generations everywhere?" This Zoom, it will be eternally recorded. Everything, it will last forever, and it can go all over the world. The midrash has come true. Everybody could come here, and the Torah will go everywhere. I'll stop the recording. If anybody wants to say something, I'm happy to share with you.